Hi guys, this is Dan for EvECoPilot.net, and today I'm here for a tutorial on shooting with turrets. Now, 3 races use turrets: Amarr, Gallante and Minmatar all use different types of turrets. I'm going to do a second video after this one for Caldari, which will be shooting with missiles. But for now we're going to focus on the mechanics regarding turrets. So each race has its own type of turret. So Gallante are using hybrids, they use hybrid turrets. Amarr are using laser turrets, and Minmatar are using projectile turrets. Now basically the way that they work is you have 2 types of each. Okay, so hybrids have blasters and rails, lasers have beams and pulses, and projectiles have artillery and autocannons. Now these are basically long range and short range guns. Okay, so for Gallante, hybrid blasters are very short range, very in your face, very bang bang. Rail guns are very long range, they're very sit back, shooty. Now for Amarr you've got beams, long range, pulse, short range, and then projectiles you've got artillery, which is the long range, and autocannons for the short range. Now on top of that you get ammunition, which will extend and or reduce the range. Okay, so for Amarr, if we look at this Amarr ship that I'm in here, this is an Abaddon. Okay, and this Abaddon has pulse lasers fitted to it. Okay, so it's got short range lasers. So if we look at my pulse laser, okay, I'm using large pulse lasers, and I believe it's a mega pulse laser 2. So if we look at the information for this gun, its default range is 24 kilometers. Okay, so it can shoot 24 kilometers by default, and that's a short range. If we then look at the beam laser, large Tech 2, that's the Tech 1 mega beam, that'll do. So the beam laser's default is 48. Okay, so it's shooting a lot further by default. Now if we go back to the pulses that I've currently got fitted, you'll see that my default range on this pulse can is 24 kilometers. So if I take my ultraviolet ammo and we have a look at this, you can see that I've got almost the same range. Okay, so for each type of gun you have 3 different types of ammo. Okay, so for Amarr we've got ultraviolet, which is basically the same range as the gun comes with, and then we've got multi-frequency, which reduces the range. So if we show info on the multi-frequency, we can see my default optimal range is only 14 kilometers, but because of that shorter range you get higher damage. Okay, if we then look at the long range ammunition, which is radio, suddenly I've got 46 kilometers optimal range. Okay, so you can see the difference there between the 3 different types of ammunition. Okay, you see the range changing, and this is the same for all 3 races. Okay, for Gallante you've got Antimatter, which is short range, lead, which is the default range, and then iron. So I'll put this in the description in the bottom of the video, just so you can use it for reference. But basically the idea is that when you're flying out in a turret based ship, you want to have some of all 3, at least all these 3. Now there are more that adjust the range in different ways, but for starting out, for getting off the bat and understanding this, these 3 ammo types will be enough for you to use. Okay, I very rarely take more than these 3 ammunitions out, unless I'm doing something very specific. So as an example here, I've got my bait, I mean Corpy, Razrock, who's kindly sat out flying one of my battleships for me. Now I'm currently at 29 kilometers away from him. So if I shoot him with multi-frequency, I'm gonna miss him. Okay. Now That's because there's two things that contribute to how this, to whether or not I'm going to hit. Okay, you first of all have your optimal range. So my optimal range is 14 kilometers, and then you have an accuracy fall off of 12 kilometers. Okay, so 14 plus 12 doesn't equal 30. So the fact that I'm 30k away, so what happens is to hit for the maximum damage onto Raz, I need to be at 14 kilometers. However, I can hit him up to 12 kilometers further than that. I've got an accuracy fall off of 12 kilometers. So you've got, I'm at point 0, 12 kilometers away is my optimal, 14 kilometers away is my optimal range, but I can still hit people up to 12 kilometers past that. Okay, now the idea is that you want to be as close to that optimal range as you possibly can be, because that's when your damage is going to be the highest. So if at this point, when I'm shooting him with the, you see there's a very small chance there that I can hit him. Okay, and that's actually because I'm at 29 kilometers. So if we do the math there, let's have a look. This is probably going to be just on the very edge. So what are we, 14, 20, 26, 27. So we're literally on the very end of my optimal range. So you can see although I'm hitting him here, this is basically some of my skills coming into play, which is extending it slightly. But as you can see, most of the time I'm either hitting him for a little bit of damage or I'm just clean missing, and I think I'm actually being quite lucky here. Most of the time, if they're past your optimal range and they're outside of your fall off, you're just going to miss, or you're not going to do much damage. So at this point, I would then change up to my next level of ammunition. Okay, I would go to the ultraviolets, and if I start shooting him with the ultraviolets, you can see that I'm going to hit him every time. So if we look at the information for this module, we can see my default, my optimal range is 25 kilometers, and I still got that 12 kilometer fall off. So I'm almost going to hit him every single time. And as you can see, I'm steadily hitting him for 400, 400, 350. Now, what I can then do is obviously then go, if he then starts flying away, or we go into another fight, I need to get to a longer range, I can then extend that further and start using the radios. Now the radios, you see they're 240 damage, because basically the longer range ammunition you use, the less damage you're going to do. Okay, so being closer to your target is always a good idea from a damage point of view, but not necessarily from a safety point of view. So that's your trade-off. Do I get closer to him and kill him quicker, and then risk him killing me quicker, or do I stay further away and just shoot him for longer? And that's a question for another day. But what you need to understand is that you basically have long range and a short range gun, and then you can adjust the optimal range of that gun using long range, short range, or default range ammunition. Now the setup that I've got here, this is just for demonstration purposes. Okay, you don't keep all three ammo types loaded, because obviously at the moment there's no point in me shooting him with multi-frequencies or short range because he's out of range. So what you're actually going to do, if we unload these to the cargo, okay, if you hold down shift, if I clear this all out, so now I've got all my guns just basically as you'll get them when you start. If you hold down shift, you can drag the guns on top of each other like this. And I'm just holding down shift and dragging them and dropping them, and you can do this for any of the turrets. Now once I've done that, I can now right click and I select multi-frequency. Okay, so there's my multi-frequency ammo loaded. Now if that's too far away, what I will do is right click and change to ultraviolet. Okay, and then if he gets even further away, I change to radio, shoot again. Now what you do need to do is you can't change weapon types while the gun's firing. Okay, you see it won't change, it's just going to stay as radio. So what you need to do is turn it off, and then as soon as the cycle timer finishes, you change the ammunition. Change to the wrong one. Change the ammunition, and then you fire again. Okay, Jesus, I just hit, yeah. So what the difference between the three races is basically just the name of the ammo. You see, if we look at Gallante here, Antimatter will take 50% of the range off. Lead is not going to modify the range at all. Iron is going to give you 60% range. Okay, so it's exactly the same across all three races. There's minus 50, there's 0, and there's plus 60. So I guess Minmatar get a little bit more range at their short, but nothing really that noteworthy. So all three of the turret races behave the same way. And basically what it comes into is, what's the default range of my gun? Okay, so all I take into when I get into a new ship is, okay, my default range is 25. So I can either half that or double it if I need to. So if I'm within, at that point, I would probably go by the rules of 10, of up to 15k, up to 30k, and then up. Yeah, I would up to 15k I'd use Multifrequency, the short range. Up to 30k I'd use Ultraviolet, and then anything past that I'll start using radios. And that's just 3 numbers to keep in your head. So at the moment I go, right, he's on 29k, he's probably going to start flying away from me, so I'll go to radio, and I'll just keep shooting him with that. Now, the one advantage that Amarr has over the Minmatar and Gallante races is that, as you can see, I can change these weapon types very quickly. Okay, I just right click and they change. The Gallante and Minmatar races have to reload. Okay, so it takes 10 seconds to change your ammunition. So choosing that ammunition is very important during a fight. Those 10 seconds to reload your guns can lose you the fight. So picking that, and it's something you get used to, but as long as you understand the concept of choosing the range that your gun has initially, and then modifying that with the ammunition to then get the ideal range, to get as close to that optimal range as you can. And yeah, with that in mind, that's the basics of how to shoot something. Now, the only other thing that comes into play here is what's called tracking trajectory. Okay, now in short, the bigger the gun is, the slower it moves on your ship. So if you imagine you've got a tiny little ship, okay, and it's orbiting around me like this, if the ship is moving sort of in a direction faster than my guns can track it, then it's not going to be able to hit him. The gun isn't going to be able to turn fast enough. So basically, big guns versus small ships, it isn't a good idea. So for example, if you're out in this big battleship and you're trying to shoot a frigate that's orbiting you, the ship is moving faster than your gun can track. That's called your transversal velocity, and that is a big thing in PvP especially. If you can go round the ship quicker than it can target you, or than it can aim at you, then it's never going to hit you. Okay, and if you've got a smaller gun than him, you're going to be able to hit him too when he can't hit you, and that's obviously a pretty good situation. But that's something we'll go into in one of the more advanced tutorials. The point of this tutorial is just that you understand that you get, for all the turret bases, Amarr, Minmatar, Gallante, if you're using any turrets, you take the long range or the short range turret, and then you modify the range that you're able to shoot at by changing the types of ammunition. Okay, so I'll put these down in the description. Again, we are still recruiting in the old Illusions public channel. We've got the corps starting to grow quite quickly, and yeah, so if you're a new player and you're looking for a home, we'll take you in and sort of show you EvE really. If you want to see any other tutorials, just put a comment in the bottom, let me know what tutorials you want me to do, and we'll get them done for you. So I'll sign out for now, and I'll speak to you soon.